I should have known a DNF video was going to be so damn negative. The internet's going to be mad at me. Hi guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and I thought we would do a little book chat. We are in the plant room today because I'm just kind of on a roll with recording, and I figured while I'm in the mood and ready, I might as well go ahead and record whenever I can. I'm not enough on a roll to want to do like costume changes and like lip changes, so I didn't want you to get sick of the sweater and lip combo, so I figured I'd at least give you a different background. So you're gonna see plants, and that's where we are. So today I thought we would do a little bit of a book chat on DNFing books. If you're unfamiliar with that term, it means that you did not finish, so you just gave up on the book. I know that's hard for a lot of readers. So we're going to talk about books that I've DNFed this year and why in general I DNF books. Because it tends to fall in categories, I've noticed. So we're going to take a look at some of the ones that I have just given up on this year and what led me to that decision of finally just giving up, even if it was something I was really excited for or had something that could have kept me going. Everything I'm going to mention will be listed and linked in the description below, so you can find out more about them if the things that I say about them make you want to read them, because you're like, actually that sounds like something I would love. Valid. You can find them below. So I used to be one of those people that if I started something I had to finish it, and that even included series. I could start a series and be like, oh, I really don't like this, but pick up the next book in the series because I was like, I need to just continue. I did that with City of Bones. I read the second book even though I was like frustrated, and that I think might have been the turning point because after that I kind of gave up. Long story short, I have reached a point in my life where I'm a little more ruthless about what I'm going to read. There are too many books, there's too little time, and if I'm just frustrated with a book or indifferent to a book, chances are I'm just going to get bogged down in it and not want to read it. And if I feel like I can't read anything else either until that one's done, I won't be reading anything. And that's how you end up in a rut where you go for like 3 months not having read anything. And I don't want to do that anymore. I'm past that stage in my life. You can kick out bad friends, you can kick out bad books. I think I have DNF'd roughly 10. My neighbors are so loud. Okay, if you can hear my neighbors fighting, sorry. I'm gonna have to deal with it because they are ridiculous. But I think I've DNF'd roughly 10 books or so this year, most of them for pretty much one of two reasons. I think what I'm gonna do is kind of break this video down into the reasons that I DNF and then the books that kind of, my God, fit into that category. So the first one and the biggest one for me is definitely indifference. If I just don't feel the connection to the characters or the plot, if I don't really care, like if they could die on the next page and I'd just be like, oh, and keep flipping, what's the point? There's really no point in me continuing that. To an extent, Emergency Contact by Mary C. Choi fits into that category. Now, I've read most of this. I did like it. Whenever I'd pick it up, I liked it. I enjoyed her style, but there did come a point where every time I'd set it down, I'd be like, do I want to pick that up again or do I want to pick something else up? Because even though I was enjoying it when I was in it, I wasn't enjoying it enough to want to seek it out because I was just kind of indifferent. I felt like I kind of knew where it was headed. I knew who these characters were. I didn't necessarily love the female lead, even though I felt like she's very, very, very relatable. A very flawed person that I think a lot of teen girls are going to see themselves in. She's got that sort of bitter cynicism. I would have eaten that up as a teen because I was a bitter little bitch. But I kind of have gotten to the point where I don't want to revisit that. I don't want to be that person and I don't want to read about that person anymore. I think that that was helping kind of further a disconnect with me where I just didn't want to be in her voice. I was a little over her sort of jaded sarcasm and the way she treated people, and though I don't think that all main characters should be likable and that they should be, you know, flaw-free and non-problematic, there are times when I just can't connect to that and make myself want to read it. I don't want to invite that negativity into my life. Not that she was so super negative, but it was enough to make me kind of distance myself from her, which then in turn makes me feel a little indifferent, and then I stop kind of caring what happens and how it's going to play out. So I'm sure that if I were to pick this up again today, I could fall right back into the story, right back into the style, enjoy it while I'm reading it, and then the minute I put it down, I'd be like, I don't know that I want to pick it up again. So I finally just had to set it to the side. The same thing kind of happened, even though I hate to say this, with Webb of Frost by Lindsay Smith. I love Lindsay Smith, and I love her handle on the worlds that she builds in this kind of Russian-inspired fantasy merge. This is another one where when I was reading it, I enjoyed it, but I just couldn't seem to fully connect to the characters or to what they were going through, who they were. There's nothing that I hated about it, but it was one of those things where I'd set it down and I would kind of forget about it, or something else would come along that just captured my attention and my eagerness more. I like Lindsay and I want to support her, but personal connection and the passion wasn't there for me. Whatever contributes to the indifference, sometimes it's hard to kind of pin down, because maybe it's small things, like maybe the writing needs to be tightened, or personality needs to be dialed up, or you're having to work a little bit too much. It's hard to say. Like sometimes you can't, I think, quite identify what it is that's making you not connect with the book, but whatever the reasoning is, if I don't connect, if I don't care or don't care enough, that's typically the death knell for me. And that is when I'll be like, I might as well just move on. On a similar note, voice is a big one for me. So I kind of mentioned voice in both of those indifference books. I don't think the voice was bad in either of those. I just couldn't connect to it. But in other books, I might feel like the voice is just, if not bad, then really not to my tastes, or I'm going to say juvenile, and people on the internet are going to freak out because they're going to be like, you're talking about teen books and you're calling teen books juvenile, and that's stupid because of course they are, they're for teens. That's not what I mean by juvenile. When I talk about something being juvenile in the writing, it means the writing itself feels underdeveloped. It feels like it's young, like it hasn't pushed, like there isn't enough experience behind it, there isn't enough thought behind it. You know, you sit down to write things as a teen and you might be a fantastic writer as a teen, but in all likelihood, as you get a little bit older, you're going to look back at that stuff and you're going to be like, oh God, it's so cringy. And it's not that it was bad for your skill level at the time and your level of experience at the time. It was fantastic. But once you kind of get a little bit more life experience under your belt and a little bit more word experience, you've read more widely, you've experimented more with your writing, you start to see that a lot of what you wrote then maybe was a little surface. You didn't dig deep enough, you didn't push things far enough, you didn't analyze your characters and your world and make sure that you had those baselines enough. Or maybe the voice felt very young, felt very silly, felt very easy, whatever it is. That's what I mean by juvenile writing, and I think that is what a lot of people mean. Sometimes people will say like, this book was too teenage, and they mean it. They mean that it was just very teenagery, the characters acted like teens, and for whatever reason they weren't expecting that in a YA book. But I think most people, when they're talking about that, they're talking about bigger underlying flaws and not that the teens acted like teens. I'm just gonna put that out there. That's maybe a book chat for another time. But in this case, it leads me into my point about voice. So some of these voices might not necessarily be bad, they might just not be to my taste, but a lot of times it might be that I feel like they needed to be pushed more. They needed something to make me buy them and connect to them more. So a good example of that, and I forgot to grab it from my room, is the book Ink by Alice Broadway. I read that towards the beginning of the year and I thought the concept sounded fantastic, but I couldn't connect to the voice, which felt a little bland and a little obvious, and the sort of world building that propped up that voice felt really cheesy to me. I just couldn't believe it. So the kind of narration voice, what the author is giving me, didn't work, and then the main character's specific voice also didn't really work. The same is kind of true of Uncharted by Erin Cashman. I don't think that this is horrible. I think a lot of people are going to love this and just tear through it, but I ended up giving up on it. Again, slightly bland and just a little bit too over the top for me, and it's not like it's extreme, but it's just for what it is. I just found myself kind of rolling my eyes a little bit, so just kind of had to disconnect from it, I guess. Biggest example of this, though, I think is the book Pretty Dead Girls. I want to say it's by Monica Murphy, and again, I forgot to grab it from my room. I couldn't get more than a few pages into this. No, it was kind of Pretty Little Liars-esque, very soapy, very cheesy, and it just sounded too young. It sounded too put on, I guess. It didn't sound natural teen. It sounded like an adult trying to sound teen, and it was kind of obnoxious. Now, no offense to teens, because I remember being an obnoxious teen, and you get together with your friends and you talk a mile a minute and you're catty and gossipy and stupid, and that's just part of being a teen. That's part of the joy of being like an excitable, 14-year-old. I don't necessarily want to read that in voice, though. I don't want to read that written out, because it can sound a little scattered and a little, I don't know how to describe it. And it's been a while since I even kind of sampled that book, but it was like, I don't know, it just sounded way too young and a little bitchy and just silly in a way, I guess. And even though I was really craving thrillers at the time, I got just a few pages into that voice and I was like, I can't do this voice for a whole book. It doesn't matter how exciting the thriller is or what the big twists are. I can't put myself in this voice for 300 and something pages. So voice can be a big one on why I give up on something. And it doesn't have to be poorly written voice. It can just be voice I don't like. Again, I mentioned having characters that are kind of bitter and jaded, and sometimes I really like that. But a lot of times it can just be something that's going to pull me into a negative space I don't want to be in. You know, there are books, like I can't really picture myself reading American Psycho because I don't want to be in that voice. I'm sure it's well done. I don't really want to put myself through that, and I don't want to be in that voice. So voice is a big reason that I can kind of disconnect and just be like, pass. One last one on the indifference front is Shadow Shaper by Daniel Jose Older. I was reading this, listening to this on audiobook, and again, it was fine when I was listening to it. I like it. I like the narrator. I think she does a great job. And I think that Daniel injects personality in it well, but there was still just something, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but something was making me not really care. It feels like something I would have liked if I had read it, 6 or 7 years ago. I'm kind of past that point, and you have to really give me something that's going to keep me going beyond just like the injection of Boricua flavor. Though it did that really well, and I think that there will be a lot of readers that will love it and connect to it and find themselves in it, which is great. The plot itself, the kind of world that you're being thrust into, seems like such a great idea on paper, and I was excited for it. But once I got into it, I just kind of stopped caring after a while. Maybe it just didn't get to the point fast enough. Maybe I didn't get any of the anticipation of a mystery and magic system. But once I got to the point that I currently had downloaded in my overdrive and it was time to download the next chapter, I just thought, I don't care enough to. Before I move on to my last sort of section, there's one that kind of straddles the line for me, and I'm so sad to say this. I can't really tell if it's an indifference thing or a voice thing. I don't know what it is that's keeping me from connecting with this book the way I want to, but I finally decided to give up on The Boneless Mercies by April Genevieve Tuolke. I would show you this, but it's not sitting on my bed where I last put it, so I think maybe Kimba knocked it behind my bed, which I guess is fine since I had decided to give up on it. I was so excited for this book. It is a sort of gender-flipped retelling of Beowulf, and there are these really strong, intriguing characters, and I was excited to see where it was going. And maybe it was just that it felt like it was kind of treading water for a while and not getting to the meat of the story. Or maybe I felt like I wanted to dig in more to these characters. I don't know exactly what it is, but every time I would pick it up, I would be like, this is nice. And I never pushed past that. And I wanted to be excited for it. I wanted to like tear through it and be like, this is bomb. And I couldn't seem to get there with it. I love the idea of it, and I do like the characters that have been set up, but I just couldn't make myself care about it. Now, partly I think there is some pet peeve issues that are keeping me from it. I've talked about this before with April Genevieve Tuolke's writing. I read one book by her, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, and really, really enjoyed that. But then another that was a little more experimental, Wink Poppy Midnight, it had some things that really ate at me, and I remember kind of saying, and this is a little bit mean, but I remember saying that the book isn't as smart as it thinks it is. It's presented in this way that you're supposed to think like things are very clever, isn't that a nice little twist, or play with words or whatever, but instead it feels really heavy-handed. And I kind of felt that way a little bit with The Boneless Mercies. Obviously, because it's a Beowulf retelling, you've got that like Norse-influenced Old English thing. Those elements creep in, and they're kind of twisted by April into something that's close enough to kind of give you that nod, but she's trying to make it her own. And in general, I respect that, but some of these were so like on the nose, but like cloying. I don't know, like Norse is Vorse, and just, it became a little bit like right by numbers, I guess, but also just, I can't speak to April's like mindset when she was writing this, so like don't read into this too much, but it felt like a little bit of a pat on the back, like aren't I clever? Some of the changes that she made, and it just started to kind of get on my nerves. It felt slow And I don't talk about slow books a lot. Like, you guys know I like my slow books. I like slow burning. This felt like I just wanted to fucking get to it already. Just push through, get me where we're going. Can we get into this, please? And it just wasn't getting there. Though I love the concept. I love the idea of gender flip Beowulf. I love the kind of feminist bent that it's taking. And maybe I'll revisit it when I'm more in the mood for it, but I was picking this up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down and looking at it like I was kind of dreading it, even though I wanted to love it, and that was really making me sad. So I finally just had to give up. The last reason that I'll kind of give up on books, and this is a little bit of a combination of the other two, but like dialed up, and that is when it's just too damn cheesy. So I can have a pretty high cheesy tolerance in some scenarios. If it's fun cheesy, if it's really quick moving cheesy, if there's something else about it that pulls me along, I can deal with it. There have been plenty of books that I've read this year that are super cheesy that I loved, or at least liked, or at least tore through. So it doesn't always detract for me. It could entirely be a mood thing, right book at the right time, or wrong book at the wrong time. But as I mentioned with Ink and Pretty Dead Girls to an extent, if everything feels cheesy or silly or not supported enough to kind of hold the weight of all that cheese, I'm gonna give up, which is why I'm kind of considering giving up my current read, which is Valiant by Mary DiStefano. This one comes out in December, so I'll be talking about it more, I think. Even though I'm like 70% in and I've only just started reading it, like I can finish this book tonight or tomorrow easily, I kind of just don't feel like it because I don't care. I've reached my cheesy tolerance, and once you kind of hit that threshold, I disconnect. So that kind of leads to some of the indifference problems.
Future Misty here. I ended up finishing this book and am gonna talk about it. It's gonna happen. So rather than wasting your time on making you hear about it here and there, I'm just gonna cut out the parts where I talk about Valiant in this video and insert them into where I talk about Valiant in the other video. So here's a sampling of what I thought and how it kind of connects to this concept of DNFing, even though I didn't DNF this book. If you want to know my full thoughts on Valiant, stay tuned. I have things to say. This video's long enough.
It has some things that are driving me out of my mind. It's very Mary Sue, and I hate that term. I hate how that is used to insult so many books. Always against women. I mean, I can't tell you really anything about her. She has no real personality other than that everyone seems to fawn over her. You can't build this alien invasion world where the stakes are so high and people are dying all around you, and yet everyone keeps laying down their life for you, this person that they've just met. Never believe that she's gonna be hurt. It ends up reading as cheesy. When you take away the consequences and the tension, I'm probably gonna check out pretty fast. It doesn't feel like the weight of it is there. Now, this is a debut. It might just be, you know, she needs to take those couple of punches that she's gonna get from those first horrible reviews, and unfortunately mine is one of them, I'm sorry. When you sort of reach my cheesiness threshold and you're not giving me something else to keep me going, I'm gonna just kind of give up because I don't want to roll my eyeballs right out of my head. I should have known a DNF video was gonna be so damn negative. So there you have it. That is some books that I have DNF'd this year. There were more. There was a Love at First Sight? Love at First Sight? That doesn't sound right. Hold on, it's in my phone. Oh no, maybe it's not because I think I deleted it. I actually deleted it. That's pretty bad. Anyway, that one was, again, I couldn't connect to the voice. I didn't care. So there were other ones, but those are the kind of main reasons that I DNF books, and some that kind of illustrate it, illustrate why. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What are the reasons that you will just give up on a book? If you do, if you don't, why? Did you know that there are amazing books out there that you're gonna like more? And that you didn't sign a contract saying that you have to finish that book? Unless you signed a contract saying you have to finish that book. You might have, if you're a booktuber, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and your reasons and your examples in the comments. If you have read and loved any of the ones that I talked about, feel free to try to convince me in the comments. As I said, it might just be wrong book at the wrong time. There have been books that I've hated that I couldn't stop thinking about and ended up going back and rereading at a later date and loved. You know, sometimes things just don't, the voice doesn't connect with you and where you are at that point. So maybe you'll convince me to give these another try. Probably not, but you can try. But that is all. That's my thoughts. That's this book chat. If you have ideas or topics you'd like to see on another book chat, let me know. But till next time, whatever the next video is, that's all for now. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, happy reading!